Now, Chris, you're a braver man than Rita, James or I for immersing yourself into months and months of non-stop Rudd and Turnbull. How's your sanity holding up?
It's okay. It's okay, Rowan. You've got to remember that I've been immersed in this stuff for probably a decade or more. I first got to know Kevin Rudd when I worked for the Foreign Minister, Alexander Downer, and Kevin Rudd was the shadow Foreign Minister. And I moved to Sydney back in 2009 to work for Malcolm Turnbull when he was opposition leader. So I've seen them both at close hand for a long while. But the last few months, going through some of the twists and turns and the excesses and the lowest moments has been a bit traumatic. But I'm pretty proud of what we've put together tonight. I can't wait to share it with everyone at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, everyone's going to be watching it. It was always a close contest, Chris. Who was the worst of the two? Spoiler alert. Is it a draw or does one of them win by a nose tonight?
Look, I reckon when it comes to actually their achievements as Prime Ministers, it's pretty hard to rack up too much for them at all. Different people have different perspectives. A lot of people will point to an apology to Indigenous Australians from Kevin Rudd as an achievement of his, or getting us through the GFC. With Malcolm Turnbull, what would it be? Delivering gay marriage?
That's
marriage
pretty much
equality?
it. That was pretty much it. Now, Chris, we've seen clips, but you've got a little bit of the Greg Rudd interview. That was obviously Kevin's brother. That was a real coup for you to get him there. We'll play a clip of that and then talk about it. Here we go.
I was brought up in the same room as Kevin, but on the wall were sort of posters of empire. He was always fascinated with the rise and fall of empires. How you get authority, how you keep authority, and how to rise through those systems. How do you become a leader? With the absolute 100% belief that if he got there, he would make the world a better place. I'd say Malcolm's similar, very similar, yeah.
Is your brother a good man?
We can all look in the mirror and say the same thing. Does he think he's a good person? Yes. Have I seen him out of the light of politics do good things that will never be reported? Have I seen him do that a lot through life? Yes, I have. So to answer that, I'd say look at any leader on no matter what side of politics, any leader who's got to the top, ask the same question and say they're a mix of good, bad and pragmatic necessity.
Great interview. And did you get the line of men in the mirror from Greg Rudd there? That was a great observation. And Chris, was there anyone who refused to be interviewed on your show tonight?
Yeah, interesting stuff, Rowan. Both Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd refused to give us interviews for this documentary. I noticed this morning Kevin Rudd's out on Twitter saying that I should be ashamed for going so low as to interview his brother. I mean, we asked Kevin for an interview and his brother is fascinating. Greg Rudd knows him well and is a very experienced political operative too. So I find his insights invaluable. But look, the interesting thing is, Rowan, we did ask a lot of people in politics still and those who have left politics who work closely with both these gentlemen. They're very happy to talk to me off the record and share little tidbits and stories with me. But quite a number of them said that they didn't want to be interviewed, essentially because they didn't want to get any retribution from either man. Both of them are quite intimidated by the way Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull have been trying to damage and seek vengeance against their former political colleagues. So
Rita?
That was quite revealing, I thought.
Rita?
Well, absolutely, you'd be terrified of that because these two seem to have a lot of time on their hands to do just precisely that. But I want to ask about Malcolm Turnbull and his ongoing influence on the Liberal Party, which has failed to expel him. And in fact, he's got his little disciples in there like Matt Kean. Well, how does that work going forward? How do these characters who are aligned to Turnbull, how can they seek pre-selection as Liberal candidates when they've got someone standing with them who has just been so toxic and destructive for the Liberal Party?
Yeah, I reckon, Rita, this is a real challenge for the Liberal Party nationally, but it's particularly focused on New South Wales. When Malcolm Turnbull took over the Liberal Party federally, is essentially the triumph of the New South Wales moderates over the federal party. And those moderates are still very influential in New South Wales. They effectively control the state government. So it's a bit of a problem. In the end, if Malcolm Turnbull keeps doing some of the things he's doing, that they might have to cut the umbilical cord in some way. Right? Sure, he's always pushing this Green left climate change agenda, and that's a problem for many Liberals anyway. That is a policy debate that's not going to go away. But when he's been pushing some of these gender wars and even trying to attack Christian Porter and Alan Tudge and these people over sexual assault and sexual harassment allegations, this is pretty nasty stuff, and I don't really know how the party can put up with it, because it sort of goes against any sense of natural justice or people being innocent until proven guilty and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. James?
You know, the politics of this, Chris, are absolutely fascinating, but I think the psychology of these two men is just as interesting. What sort of insights are we going to get into what is driving these two men, who are both very successful in other parts of their lives, very well off, to act like a bunch of jilted exes, essentially, who never have gotten over being rejected by their own parties and by the electorate?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a debate with Rita on television earlier this week. When I said the men were brilliant, Rita says, no, all the evidence shows otherwise. But my point is, these guys were both very successful in their pre-political careers, one in diplomacy, Malcolm Turnbull, of course, in the law and business. And they were clever enough to actually assume the leadership of their party very, very rapidly, really, without having a huge sort of legacy or history of support within their party. And then when they failed, they were able to win it back again. So there's certainly a high degree of talent there when it comes to assuming power. But in the end, one of the words that keeps coming up with a variety of people we interviewed was narcissism. And that is, the trouble is they all wanted to do it, both of them wanted to do it on their own. And we saw that in those comments from Greg Rudd about Kevin's obsession with empire. Well, empires, or when people who lead empires, they don't have to actually worry about bringing people with them. They just execute those who disagree with them. And both of these men had trouble bringing their parties with them. In the end, the reason they failed is because they couldn't bring their cabinets or their caucuses, their party rooms with them. And of course, in their post-political careers, instead of recognising that failure, they're trying to blame someone else, and that's
everyone, including this network and including yourself. Absolutely. Chris Kenny, must-watch TV tonight at 8 o'clock, The Men in the Mirror. 1 hour special. This is everyone will be there. They'll get your shardy ready and then sit down for 8 o'clock tonight, Men in the Mirror. Great job, Chris. Thanks, mate.
Guys. Cheers.
See ya. Coming up, we'll tip the salad bowl over and do some hyperbole, but a quick break first.